The National Party loses patience with Christopher Luxon and the party is moving to replace him. I have all the details of the worst kept secret in Wellington and the country's most effective and credible health whistleblower says people are now dying because our hospitals have become so unsafe. This is worse than a crisis, he says. We are witnessing the destruction of our health system. Let's go.
Are we paying these people to front up or are we paying them to fly to Wellington to eat their lunch? Should you really lose your career for refusing to take part in a 90-minute lesson about Māori culture? This government doesn't actually have any idea how to get economic growth. Show us what you made of, Prime Minister.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
Okay, welcome to the program, folks. Nice to have you along. You're with the Editor-in-Chief. I'm Duncan Garner. And it's great to have you along. Thank you so much for joining us. Please subscribe as well. Today, the coup d'etat that National would prefer it didn't have to undertake. But Christopher Luxon's indecisive leadership and his inability to connect with National under his watch could be a one-term government. So, privately, MPs are now discussing how to roll him and who takes over. I'll have more details on this shortly. And the country's number one health whistleblower, Malcolm Mulholland, says people are now dying in our hospitals because, well, they're run down, they're under-resourced, and we're witnessing the utter destruction of the health system. Some hospitals, he says, are close to closing their doors. It's powerful stuff, as much, though, as it is confronting as well, folks. Get in touch with our social media at Duncan Garner Podcast on TikTok, Instagram, or flick us an email, duncan@rover.nz, and please subscribe. That helps us stay here. Appreciate it.
It's the Slam Dunk.
Okay, so the National Party has begun the process of replacing struggling Prime Minister Christopher Luxon. It's astonishing, isn't it? The whispering campaign in Wellington about his weak and indecisive and increasingly struggling and unpopular leadership has gone to a new level, with National MPs now talking about not if he must be replaced, but when and who takes the job. His polling and his personal popularity is far too low and going backwards for this stage in the electoral cycle. It's simply not good enough. MPs concede privately that they can't enter the next election with him at the helm. If they do, they face being a one-term government. And they risk handing power over to an increasingly activist left-wing coalition, including the unpredictable Māori Party, who have failed to read the mood of 90% of New Zealand who find their anti-Pākehā approach reprehensible and entirely inappropriate for government, you see. And Labour's leader Chris Hipkins has been far too slow to condemn the approach, which only says that he's got no problem with such divisive language in politics. Put them in and watch the country completely empty out to Australia. You'll see some immigration there and they'll be gone. National needs to hit at least about 40% in the polls next time to be sure of being in government. That's what they need to get to. Luxon doesn't stand a chance. He doesn't even look like he's getting close. He's going backwards. It's understood that John Key, Stephen Joyce, he's a former Prime Minister, and the former ministers, Murray McCully, have been discussing how a transfer of power to a new leader might occur, and it involves potentially bringing in former Minister Paula Bennett as the new president of the party to oversee the potentially messy switch and break the news to Luxon that he's lost the faith and the trust of his MPs and his caucus. It's a big deal to unseat a sitting Prime Minister. The last one was, and I was there, I saw this, Jim Bolger was rolled by Jenny Shipley. The coup run by Tony Ryle and Bob Simcock. They held secret meetings for weeks, getting MPs on side. The code name for the People's Diaries was called the Te Puke Bypass. And Bolger was rolled in his return from an international conference in Britain. The news was broken to him on the tarmac by Doug Graham, one of his ministers. And Jenny Shipley took over the reins of the country, effectively. She was the new Prime Minister. National doesn't like coups. No parties do, but sometimes they simply have to be done. They have to happen for the good of the party and the wider public interest of the nation. National at this stage has no idea who would replace Luxon. That's what's being worked on at the moment. So what triggered all this? Certainly the Mike Hosking interview, which went pear-shaped, hasn't helped. But one bad day surely doesn't lead to a Prime Minister being dumped, and it doesn't. That's right. But Luxon has failed to connect with voters, and that's obvious, isn't it? He stands for nothing. Voters see that. There appears no coherent economic plan. We remain in recession. We all feel that. The health system, as you'll find out shortly, is teetering, and we're experiencing that. And he is as indecisive and unsure as he has ever been. That's on show most days. We see it. But on top of Hosking's train wreck, another issue has come to light. Mainstream media will miss this because they block certain conservative voices like Christian leader Bob McCroskey, who effectively was deplatformed by the media some years ago. So he set up his own way to connect, and he has a decent-sized audience, decent-sized following. He's used an email to Luxon from an early childhood teacher to expose just how much like Jacinda Ardern Luxon really is and why he's no strong conservative leader willing to put the radicals and the social activists in their place. Look at this. So a worried preschool teacher contacted Luxon's office asking this. She writes, "What is going on in the education system? It's not okay. Why are you allowing this wokeness and confusion into schools? I've been a childcare reliever for the last 5 years and have had several kids below the ages of 5, even as young as 3.5, approach me in centres saying they're not male or female and that they are identifying as they, them, he, she. These are vulnerable young children who know no better and are only saying it because of what they've seen and heard from TV or older people around them. What is your plan to change this, Prime Minister? I, for one, know that whatever they say, I will fight against it as a caring woman of God. So that's how the letter ends to the Prime Minister. His answer will not satisfy established Conservative voters on the right at all, or the thousands of parents in the middle. Indeed, it shows how he's miles away from their expectations and their beliefs, I think. He writes back, or someone in this office writes back, a staff member replies like this. Kia ora. Thank you for your email to the Prime Minister, Right Honourable Christopher Luxon. Christopher is a proud supporter of the LGBTQI plus community and wants New Zealand to be a country that celebrates and supports diversity, including our rainbow community. Nā mihi nui. And that's from the PM's office. No. Just no. The letter writer had specific concerns about 3, 4 and 5-year-olds becoming trans preschoolers, identifying as trans preschoolers. Luxon and his staff needed to write back that he too stands against this and that no one on his watch is going to talk or act in such a way that makes this in any way viable and acceptable. But in saying that, Chris says Prime Minister supports the rainbow community, the wider LGBT plus community, whatever, to live their lives without discrimination based under New Zealand law. So that's what he could have said. But he fails to spot it. They fail to spot it. The staff failed to see the mistake they've just made. The rest is history. When his office had all the time in the world to respond to a tricky question from a Conservative voter, he was unequivocal in his response. He was firm that he supported, that he celebrated the LGBT plus community. But when he was lobbed a sitter by Mike Hosking, he dithered, he paused and made a meal of it. It's strange, isn't it? National voters wanted more from Luxon, and in the end they got way, way less. He promised to rid the country of the Jacinda years, but he's kept much of what she introduced in office. Luxon doesn't have the command or the respect needed to hold the PM's office. And it's over, I think it's over, bar the counting and the screaming and the deal-making over this changeover. As a political journalist for 20 years at Parliament, I saw coups develop early. I saw the lies, the tricks, the denials and the language used. I saw politicians into the death spiral. It was just time, and the execution was swift soon after that, just a matter of time. This is no different. Question him, they'll undermine him. The next polls will be crucial. Watch those next polls. They're really crucial. He's been a first-year flop as Prime Minister. When you stand for nothing, you'll find it hard to answer anything in your own words or do anything at all. That's original, to be honest. Lifetime National supporters have stood around their barbecues all summer asking, when is he going to actually do anything? The answer is, he isn't. The next major announcement from Luxon will be his resignation as Prime Minister. Luxon is an empty vessel. National's policy agenda has been lacklustre, and it was a nod to the failed and boringly predictable past, really. Tax cuts for those who earn plenty. Hasn't helped the economy. Welfare sanctions to those that are downtrodden. Landlords got tax breaks. They forgot to fund the cancer drugs until it was pointed out to them. And Luxon, despite his wealth, stupidly moaned about the massive free house he was given. So he stayed in his own mortgage-free apartment only to claim the $50,000 a year allowance on top of his $500K salary. Those things resonate with people. None of this has helped us get out of recession, and the recession we remain in. Even with interest rates low, the flow-through effect is agonisingly slow on this economy. He promised to be better than Jacinda, but in the end he's proved himself incapable of doing anything at all, to be honest. It's now just a matter of time, and once they know who replaces him, I think the changeover will be relatively swift. Luxon is now on borrowed time, and the clock, folks, well, the clock is ticking.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
Okay, the health system. I mentioned that in the piece there, and we hear daily it's in tatters. And we have a huge workforce shortage. Hundreds of doctors and nurses short. We train them and they leave. We train them and they leave. They leave for Australia because we're not even hiring those that we train. Malcolm Mulholland has heard so many horror stories over the years that he's decided to put on a roadshow to hear the concerns of everybody around the country. He kicked off last night in Porirua, and he joins me now. Malcolm, g'day, nice to see you. Welcome. Why are you doing it? What's behind all this?
I guess the first thing is that we did the Bulla Declaration late last year. Some people might remember that. My dad lives down in Bulla, and we were being contacted by people really worried about the state of healthcare in that particular region. But off the back of that, I've received numerous phone calls that have been increasing in number since that time, just about horror stories that are happening within our health system right now. So that's why I thought, let's go on the road, let's see what these communities think, and let's try and do something about it.
I think you're about to be overwhelmed with community stories because, we're a country made up of small communities, let's be honest. As soon as you leave the big cities, it's communities. And their resources are pretty thin. They have to travel to get care probably that they really need. And they'll find that once they hit those big cities, the waiting lists are even longer. I think you're about to be overwhelmed. You're hitting the road because of this, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. I mean, look, I just think it's just wrong what's happening. And, we've used the word crisis to describe our health system. I actually wonder now if we're looking at the disintegration of our health system. It's probably more accurate word. I mean, some of the things I just can't quite wrap my head around, whether we're talking about workforce shortages and key positions within hospitals, whether we're talking about not being able to staff hospitals so they can't even be opened. I mean, this is how bad it's getting. And you just shake your head and you just wonder, what's the plan? How are we going to get out of this?
Well, where is the plan? Because I like you, I hear similar stuff, probably not on the scale that you do. And so I go into hospital and I look at it, there's no one there. It's like we've depowered it and turned off the lights. So whose job is it to plan? Workforce planning takes years. What are we doing?
Oh, I think in terms of pointing the finger, you could look at both governments and just say, you guys knew that this was coming and really you've done nothing about it. I think what's really worrying, though, at the moment is that our health workforce is so stretched and so stressed that they're starting to fall apart at the seams. They're experiencing burnout and we don't have very many of them anyhow. So, if we've got nobody to replace them, where can people go? I think really I'm hoping the roadshow is a bit of a clarion call for those communities to say to the government, this is not good enough and we need immediate action right now. And so, going away, hearing these communities, I'll be telling them, sign the declaration, but come with us to Parliament in November when we hand it over. You
want them in numbers. See, if you look at the health budget, and I look at this now and I think the health budget's $16 billion. That's what we spend on it, which is lower than education, lower than welfare, lower than superannuation. Okay, so we know what our numbers are. Yet every year it goes up. Government's always put it up. Now, is money the solution here, or is it the organisation behind it? Where's the ministry? Why aren't they hiring? Politicians don't hire people. Ministries do. Public servants do. Have we lost the ability in the public service to be creative here? Are they not doing their job? I mean, there's so many ways to point fingers here.
Yeah, I think it's all of the above, to be perfectly honest. I mean, it was really interesting. I had a conversation with a doctor who's based in Palmerston North Hospital, and he was saying, it's one thing to get funding for the drugs, which is what I've been advocating for. It's another to have an oncologist there who's able to prescribe and oversee that treatment plan. And then it's another to have the space. You sort of look at that and you think, wow, you've got three massive issues, confronting this one doctor who has to treat dozens, if not hundreds, of patients.
And that investment in the drugs was a brilliant one-off, and it shows what $600 or $700 million can do as a one-off. It shows how piecemeal the rest of the years were. So that's great. But I agree with you. I heard the same stories. It's all about having the drugs, but if you can't prescribe and oversee them, then you're in trouble. I'm surprised that there's been, and it has been successful, this rollout. So they found a way, didn't they? They found a way through somehow they did it.
Yeah, they did. And I think we're going to have to get a little bit more creative, especially when it comes to workforce shortages. I mean, other countries are experiencing it, maybe not on the same scale as us. And I am aware that, for example, we're not even competing with, say, Australia. So I know that there have been a ton of nurses who have scarpered off and chased the money overseas. Good on them. I don't begrudge them that. But when you have a senior oncologist in a New Zealand hospital saying he's reached the ceiling in terms of his wage, and that and he would be on the equivalent wage of somebody starting in oncology in Australia, that's wrong.
Yeah, that is wrong, and it's the same. We haven't kept up. We haven't. For two ways I reckon I look at this. We haven't population funded for a start. Our population continues to grow, so we haven't population funded. So there's more people wanting service, fewer services. But we also haven't kept up with the proper market. And I was in Australia recently and dealing with a number of these issues, and I couldn't believe the early childhood teachers, second year, are being offered jobs in Melbourne today for $128,000. Second year. And I bet, I don't know if that's news to you, that number, but that number. You'll never achieve that in New Zealand ever, no matter how far and how long you work in early childhood. Police officers were getting more in year 1 than they do in year 10 here. Perth, you can go and set up at $120,000. Queensland, $110,000. I mean, people need to live. it's all very well. Warm fuzzies and being in your own country doesn't buy the food and pay the power bill. Power bills are going up by 30% by the looks of things. So I don't know when the government's going to get real, but they are so far behind the pace. We're so far behind the pace, Malcolm. I simply almost am bewildered by it all, and I don't know what the answer is now,
Yeah, I'm a little bit the same, to be honest with you, Duncan. I just think if we're not prioritising our healthcare system, then, if you don't have your health, what do you have, right? So,
nothing.
They should be top of the list for any government, actually, not just for the New Zealand government, but for any government. And that's just not happening. So, yeah, look, we need to come up with some creative answers, I do believe. I think it's there. We can actually achieve those, but we have to have an open and honest conversation first, and also bring all the stakeholders in the room.
Yeah, and that's right. And I don't think we've been honest in that sense that, I see TikTok videos of the Prime Minister, and I see everyone saying we're back on track and this and that. And it couldn't be further from the truth. I mean, we've got these broken systems and underinvestment. Yet we've got all this immigration coming in, yet we don't know who we're bringing. And we're clearly not bringing the right people, because I believe in immigration, because immigration is used as a tool to plug holes like this. Yet the holes are bigger than ever, and immigration's been higher than ever. So what the hell is going on if you can't match your immigrants to your need? We're not getting the people we want.
Yeah, good question. And we should be, right? I mean, that's where we should be plugging the gaps with nurses and doctors and that sort of thing. But clearly that's not happening. I do know that there are some barriers involved with medical staff who come from overseas. One, they're not aware of the New Zealand context, but two, they also need upskilling in quite a few numbers where, especially in a rural setting, right, where you're having to deal with a wide range of issues, including ED. So there's still some upskilling that needs to happen, but still we have a health workforce shortage.
You're so right about this. It's not one thing, it's a number of things. The other thing is the assault on New Zealand by Australia. Now, I call it an assault because it's what it is. They, in Australia, have these big workforce shortages too. But the great thing about New Zealand is we can go there for jobs. So that's great. It's great for us. We have a safety valve and a security blanket in many ways by having the Australian economy so close when we're in trouble. The problem with that is that it takes them 2 hours to fly to New Zealand. They set up a workshop and they say, we'll double your pay, and here's another 20 grand to travel to Australia, and here's another 10 grand for a housing allowance. And suddenly you're in trouble in New Zealand because we don't mine uranium, we don't have all these, we don't have all these developments that Australia has in their economy. So we're the poor cousin and we're getting screwed. And so you add that along with the immigration, population control, lack of funding. That's where the disaster is, isn't it?
Yeah, look, it's a combination of factors. I think one of the most annoying things, though, that I'm finding, especially with our new graduates, the ones who have come through med school, they're New Zealand born in many instances and trained, is that we're not doing anything to keep them here. And I often think about the student loan that they're ticking up, and I wonder, why are we not bonding them in the hard-to-staff areas?
I thought we were.
No. Well, we were. You're absolutely right, we were, but we're not anymore.
Oh.
So we did used to have schemes, right, where we would say, hey, you practice here for 3 or 5 years, we'll take care of your student loan. That doesn't happen anymore.
Why don't we make, for instance, nurses? Why aren't we bloody hiring our own nurses? We have these graduates and doctors. We have these graduates coming through every year, and we take so many of them. We don't take the rest of them. We don't employ them. We say there's no jobs for them. There are jobs. There's just not the funding. So we've trained these people up and then promised them nothing. We can't give them a job. Why train them?
Yeah, no, good question. And we have really good training facilities when it comes to nurses in particular, right? They can train in different parts of the country and they're well-respected degrees when they come out with their qualification. But you're absolutely right. We're not doing it. I think there is some truth in the hiring freeze, Duncan. I mean,
there is.
Been spoken about, but I definitely think there's some truth in that.
I've been contacted by a number of people who've told me it's absolutely bang on. It'll be denied officially, but you know the old truth. Until it's denied officially, it's not true. When now it's denied officially, it's true. It is true. I know people who have passed me memos and sent them. You've probably seen all these things too. So if you're training your people and not hiring them, it's double whammy because you've spent money you invested in them, and Australia picks up the investment for free.
Yeah, and how many times have we been labelled, a great training place for our medical staff for Aussie? You know, that's simply how they view us, and we're enabling that to happen. We need to stop it. We need to come up with solutions.
Where's the greatest area? Where's the greatest area of concern in the health sector? I know there'll be all sorts of areas, but I remember looking at this a couple of years ago. We were 141 child psychologists short, in one area, and that's important. Mental health, that sort of stuff. Where is it? How many nurses short? How many doctors short? What are the figures that you reckon?
Oh, I think for memory, GPs, I think we're 500 short. So even if they were able to fill the announcement made yesterday of 100, we're still 400 short. I think primary care does need to be looked at, because that is where you can be proactive around health, right, and prevent people from presenting to ED and bottlenecking at ED. But there are some other flashpoints as well. So just for example, Napier, you've got a city there of 65,000 people. There was talk about shutting down their only after-hours clinic. So my question is, where are people supposed to go in a city of 65,000 people that are experiencing a heart attack? Now, they could go to Hastings, yep, but that's at least 20 minutes, 30 minutes in an ambulance at best. So the idea that you would switch an entire population onto telehealth, which was the solution they were recommending, it just wouldn't work.
I reckon I'm actually, I don't often get like this, but I'm almost overwhelmed by the subject and overwhelmed by the response needed. And just in talking to you here in the time that we've spoken, I reckon there's 10 to 15 things that we've identified that need to be addressed. Now, it's no good having a meeting and coming up with things if they're not addressed. So you've got to have people walk away and action things. I can't stand meetings. People love these meetings or hui and different, summits or whatever, and no one actions anything. But there are 10 or 12 things here, I reckon, that would immediately make a difference if we started working on them. But I don't see a central controller bringing this all together, and, it's not easy. It's really confronting and difficult, but to start, you've got to start, And I just say, I think this might be it. This might be it.
Well, trying, Duncan. I mean, to me, it's just criminal. Some of the things I hear about in terms of what's happening in the health system, and unfortunately, I think people are unnecessarily dying. Now, that's the greatest indictment on a health system failing. I think, though, politically, there does need to be some bipartisan approach to this, and I know that I've suggested this before, and there was a little bit of talk about it in the paper the other day. And then, after they had said, sounds like a great idea, they started taking pot shots at each other. People don't really care about the pot shots. That would be my message to the politicians and to Labour International. They want solutions. They need it now. Otherwise, people are going to suffer, and these problems are going to get really bad over a really short space of time.
Well, I think we're now at the stage. I think you just summed it up when you said people are now unnecessarily dying. I think they are too. And I think they are too across a number of areas. And you pick this up in different media reports and different reporting of these issues. I don't think it's going to get really, really bad. I think we're at that point, Malcolm. I think you've identified it already. If one person is dying as a result of an underfunded, under-resourced medical department or emergency department or national health department, then that's a crisis. And I hate the word crisis because I think it's been so overused that it's dumbed down the effect of what it actually is. So crisis becomes like the word "the," and it becomes such a word that you hear it so often that it means nothing anymore,
Yeah, that's right. Look, there are a number of men that I can think of who have died of a heart attack, who one could argue perhaps that may not have been the outcome if we had a properly resourced health system. There's one high-profile case I can think of in the Buller where the doctor was clearly stressed. There was one doctor on servicing the entire Buller region. And, one of the things that happened is this patient presented, they were misdiagnosed, and that patient went on and died as a result. Yeah. I've heard of similar cases happening. I'm in Wellington at the moment. I'm aware again of another high-profile case. Man presented to ED Wellington, was told, go away, it's fine, it's probably angina or something like that. Eventually wound up in Palmerston North and died.
Yeah, so I hear these stories too. To put some balance into it, I had a mate who was driving home from playing around a golf and had a heart attack as he drove. Really tough nut to crack, this guy's, believes he's been bulletproof all his 52 years. And ended up on the drive of his home, lying down, clutching. He'd gone white. He's a Samoan guy, gone white. His mum rang the ambulance. He was dying. Mum rang the ambulance. Luckily, there was an ambulance 4 minutes away. Luckily, the ambulance got there in 4 minutes. They gave him half an aspirin and they kept him alive. They took him to hospital and he rang me 2 hours later and said, mate, come to A&E. A&E, I think I've had a heart attack. He was in A&E acute for the next 4 days, and the care was superb, and it's been superb since, and they look at him every week, and he's still alive. This 14-year-old boy is really appreciative of that. But there are lots of horror stories. There are also miracles, and the fact that the thing was around the corner, because time is so crucial. And I know you acknowledge both sides. You acknowledge it at all. But by God, Malcolm, I'm really worried about, could we have an ageing population? And with an ageing population comes more need, and I just don't see a circuit breaker.
Yeah, look, that is absolutely happening. I attended a breakfast only last week where they were talking about the ageing population and the concerns that they have around that. You're absolutely right, because that'll put a bigger strain on our health system. So we need to have this conversation now. I think the other important thing, Duncan, just talking about your friend, 52, I think you and I are of a similar age, right? We're kind of around the middle-aged, shall we say.
God, it happened quickly, didn't it?
Yeah, exactly. We're not bulletproof anymore, though, right? That's the
that.
one thing I have learned. And we do have this mentality of she'll be right, no worries, I've played sport all my life. But age is catching up with us too, and you do have to take a bit of self-responsibility and be proactive. I'm not saying that will solve the health system problems. Absolutely it won't. But I think it's important for people to take stock, to kind of know, what are the tests I should be doing at particular ages, and going and seeing your GP and getting those tests done.
I'm going to finish off with that, Malcolm. It's that whole bulletproof thing. And I know Men's Health Week's coming up and we're doing a whole series around this. But I've only just realised that I'm not bulletproof. For years playing rugby and all that sort of stuff, I thought I was. And I started to see mates. I've got a mate who had a heart attack, 52. I've got a mate, 52, dying of cancer, although he refuses to die, but the prognosis is terrible. And I had him in here last week. We had a chat with him. And I've realised that. And so we've got to do everything we can to stay above ground, but Father Time gets you. So, and the medical system may not be there for you, as we're finding out. So you've got to do everything for yourself and take personal responsibility as much as you can, right?
Oh, totally agree. I mean, the things that I've learned over the past 5-10 years, are things that just didn't enter my mind until it was really put in front of me. And, I'm one of the lucky ones, Duncan. I mean, I've had prostate cancer, and it was an aggressive form, and I was pretty lucky. We got it removed just in the nick of time. There are other things in my health that I've had to be a lot more proactive about, whereas I wouldn't have been before. So please do engage with your GP. Just say to them, look, I'm 45 years old. I'm 50 years old. What test should I be doing? What things should I be keeping an eye on? Yeah. These are some of the easy things we can do.
I'm going to leave it there, Malcolm. Always nice to see you. Good luck with the roadshow.
Thanks, Duncan.
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you, mate. Thank you.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
Okay, Malcolm Mulholland. I think Isaac, for Christchurch producer Isaac, I reckon I'll bring you in here. This roadshow, you hear so many woeful stories about health. If you don't get health right, you get nothing right, because without health, you got nothing, right?
Yeah, healthcare is super important. I mean, it just seems like such an obvious thing to put time and effort into. But
it doesn't, though.
That's not happening.
Yeah, we throw money, as you see from this podcast. We highlight where all the money goes. But you'd think that it should go something like health first, and then if there's anything left over, let's get the treats. But I don't know. I think Malcolm Mulholland's a hero, New Zealand hero. And he seems to be doing.
He had some pretty heavy things to say, and so I really
you thought it was pretty powerful interview, eh?
Yeah, it was really, really good.
Yeah. Okay, so he kicked off last night, so good on him, and good luck to him as he heads around the country. Right, we have some feedback. We've got a bit of feedback, some letters in. Can you see those?
Yes, I can indeed.
Because you're gonna have to read those, because I can't see them. So you go for it.
Okay, I see. All right, let's get right on into it. With the first one from it's a long one. Alexander.
Yeah.
Good on you, Alexander. Kia ora, Duncan. I've been listening to your podcast and I quite enjoy it, even if I disagree with you on occasion. Good starting point. I do appreciate someone who can listen and disagree at the same time.
I don't mind. That's good.
I wanted to check you and your guests on this fantasy that New Zealand should be like Ireland and Singapore, because I know that you are all about the facts on your podcast. In both cases, the success of these jurisdictions has more to do with their geography in combination with their regulatory settings. Ireland is a part of the European Union. Sorry, which countries are we close to? The only things we're close to are a few million penguins in Antarctica. If New Zealand puts the corporate tax rate to zero tomorrow, it would do nothing to boost foreign direct investment into New Zealand and create the utopia that some people claim. The cold, hard truth is that New Zealand is a million miles from anyone else. Well, that's not really truth, is it? But we can glaze over that. For everyone else, which puts us into a unique position. We must forge our own path to success. We must change our regulatory settings to improve productivity for sure. But this mindless repetition of, oh, we'll be like Ireland and Singapore is stupid and lazy. Nuance, Duncan. It's a word that many Kiwis don't seem to have understood. I love my country, but sometimes I question whether the New Zealand education system has failed the vast majority because most people don't seem to be able to think anything below the surface level. Thanks for the podcast. I genuinely enjoy listening in every day. Keep up the good work. Sincerely, Alexander.
Yeah, that's a good email. I don't disagree with him. I think, you go out there and you say, New Zealand needs to be like Ireland, so we need to do these things. I mean, it's just a generalisation. We need to be like Ireland. I wouldn't take it that seriously, Alexander. I understand the nuance. We are miles away. Maybe we're doing really well as a country for our geopolitical sort of nature, where we are in the world. We are so isolated, Isaac. Maybe we've done okay. We're underneath the world. We're at the bottom by Antarctica. He's right. We're never going to access the European Union like Ireland can. We haven't got those countries available and all that money. So, I think he makes a good point and he's right. And I think he's right on the education system too. I think it's woeful. I was looking at some Form 2, so some Year 8 students. So Year 8? Yeah, Year 8 students the other day and what they were writing. My God, Isaac. The, and, when, where. Like, that's the level. I know. What's going on?
Ooh.
I might even bring that in and show you what they were doing. The father of the boy showed me, and I was horrified by it. They need to be better developed than that when they go to college next year, so I think he makes a good point.
Wow, interesting.
There's one more there?
Yes, one from David. Hi, Duncan. First of all, I viewed your thoughts on YouTube for the first time, and I would like to say that you're a breath of fresh air. There you go, Duncan. I've been living in New Zealand since 1977, and I've seen a lot of changes. Some good, some bad. In the last 10 years, I have noticed a downturn, which is a shame. All I would like to say is keep doing what you're doing. Kindest regards, David.
Yeah, we're hearing from lots of new people too. So thank you, David, for that nice email. There's a huge number of comments on social media. We can't go through them all, but we thank you. I mean, we'd be here all night, wouldn't we? Some of these things are getting 700-800 comments. There's no easy way to show the comments. The comments are on our sites. You can jump on wherever you get your podcast, jump on. You'll see the comments there, right, Isaac? You'll see them all. So that's all there. That is us, folks. Thank you for all your feedback. Really concerning some of that health stuff, isn't it? And Luxon's in a bit of trouble anyway, isn't he? Thanks for your feedback and, of course, all your support of the podcast. Get in touch through our social media at Duncan Garner Podcast on TikTok, Instagram, or flick me an email at duncan@rover.nz. Don't forget to subscribe as well. Subscribing matters. What's our mission? We've got to get to 15,000 subscribers by the end of the month, and then I'll do 50 press-ups. 50 press-ups.
Yep, that's it.
You reckon I can do 50?
Oh, 50's tough, man.
I reckon, man. I mean, I did 30.
Yeah.
And...
Yeah. Maybe we should do it at the end of the podcast next time.
Do I do 25 and 25? Yeah, not doing them before.
Maybe, yeah.
Panting away. It's just like a thrown leg or something. Anyway, to my team, I said thanks, mate, and thank you guys. We'll do this all again tomorrow. Remember, life is no dress rehearsal. There's no curtain raiser. This is it. Go and give it your best shot. We live in one of the best places on earth. Go out, get out, and enjoy it. Have a great day and rest of the evening. Take care, gentlemen.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.